Welcome to the NotOnRecords Sports and Ag Podcast. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about agricultural issues and problems in the community and society that are non-beneficial for farmers and other people with agricultural pursuits that are holding them back and preventing them from taking it to the next level. And we're just going to address some issues about what's bothering us and how we can solve it. So the first 6 things that I want to talk about are Mother Nature, economical and agricultural issues, environmental issues, politics, supply and demand, and preference and economics. So one of the main things that I want to get to first is preference and economics. And the main part of that is GMO foods versus organic foods. And GMO and organic foods have, ever since GMO was created, because GMO stands for genetically modified organisms. So a basic definition of GMO is organisms whose genetic material or DNA has been altered or modified in some way that doesn't occur naturally. And organic food are all natural foods and don't have any solvents, fertilizers, or adjuvants that will make it unnatural and irregular to the natural world. And ever since GMO foods were discovered or created, it's kind of created a controversy between the two foods, and people have been saying organic foods are better or GMO foods are better. And it's, I don't know if you can say it's caused a problem, but it's caused a seminar or a debate that's peaceful. No one's really gotten hurt in the process. But some examples of GMO foods are soybeans and corn and canola. A couple months ago or a couple weeks ago, I saw a paper or an article that said most of corn is genetically modified, and it's not what it used to be multiple years ago. And it's really taken a toll on how people see GMO foods. So, in my opinion, organic foods are better, but in the long run, if you want to save money and be better on that side, you're gonna have to take GMO foods. GMO foods are designed and made to have a higher nutrition and more benefits, but sometimes all the fertilizers and extra things that they put into GMO foods, it causes more harm than benefits. But you can make that debate depending on what resources or what articles of information you can get to make that. GMO foods and organic foods, a lot of people know about it. A lot of people play into the economics of it because organic foods are generally higher in price while GMO foods are lower in price. And my opinion on that is because GMO foods are now easier to make because of all the fertilizers and additives that are put into it. It makes it easier to grow with having less resources, meaning less sunlight, less water, less soil, and all that fun stuff. But organic, because it's organic and it doesn't have all that extra stuff, it's going to need more water and more soil and more sun. So that's my take on that. And to be honest, I think GMO foods are going to advance in the next way. I think with how humanity is progressing and agriculture is progressing, they could get rid of organic foods and just go wild with GMO foods instead of actually wanting to go to that next level with organic foods, maybe experiment more with it, see what they can do with organic foods without actually adding any of the preservatives or anything. And then let's get into the supply and demand part of it. So I was looking at a chart and images, and mainly what I found is that there's only 2 million farmers in the United States. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the supply and demand is getting harder now. And correlating back to the GMO foods versus organic foods, farmers sometimes, I think, in my opinion, are divided on whether they should do both or just one, or GMO or organic, because so many people, like both, and it's hard to decide, right? And with the growing population of the world, like let's look back to other civilizations, like the Paleolithic and the Neolithic revolutions. When they discovered agriculture, populations started growing and growing and growing. And that's kind of what we're facing today. And 1928, the population was at 2 billion people. 1950, 2.5 billion. 1987, 5 billion. And 2019, 7.7 billion. In 2020, it's 7.8 billion. And then in 2050, we have an expected number of 9.7 billion. And in 2100, it looks like we're going to be at 10 billion. So it could be concerning. Overpopulation is definitely a factor that can play into that. But the supply and demand is definitely growing, and people are trying to make more families, and that's what happened with other people. More food, extra food, meaning they can take care of more people. So more people were born, and it's a debatable thing whether the world is actually getting overpopulated and whether we have enough food for that. But I do think that we have enough food. If we put our minds to it, we can definitely start supplying in more food to supermarkets and farmers markets and all that fun stuff. That way we can get more people into the world. Another thing that I wanted to address is environmental issues. So with climate change and global warming that's happening, it's getting harder now to actually plant crops and stuff of all that. If you haven't noticed, for me at least, it's getting a little bit hotter. I mean, if you look at the charts and the studies and everything, it proves that global warming is happening. And not only that, but I feel like the temperatures are changing really, really quick. Like, during my first week at school, I had to wear a jacket because it's cold. But the 2 weeks before that, I was wearing a jacket, and people were telling me, take it off. It's way too hot. And it's crazy because in that 2 week span, it went from really hot and really cold. And Arizona's like that. I don't know if it's just any Arizona or if it's another place in the world. But, I mean, the environmental factors and issues do play into that, in my opinion. If humanity reaches to a point where we're actually going to have to hit the panic button on global warming and stuff, it's definitely going to take a toll on farming because in my opinion, we're going to be behind on where we're supposed to be. And I don't know if we're going to be able to recover from that and stuff. And finally, we can talk about it later, but Mother Nature and environment and economic environmental issues, we will talk about that in the next episode. But the final thing that I wanted to talk about was the politics in it. I'm not really much of a politician or anything. I don't really have an opinion. But some candidates, senators, presidents, whatever you want to call it, they have different views on how agricultural business and economics should play out. My opinion on that is they should give farmers a little bit more of a chance to receive more money, bigger grants for wanting to expand acres, because like I said, in supply and demand, the population's growing, and if we want humanity to keep on going and producing more humans, then, well, we're going to have to give more money. But the thing is, too, some people are concerned about overpopulation, so it's just your opinion. So if you think the world's getting overpopulated, then no, you don't have to support the fact that they should give farmers more money. If you think, hey, we're kind of a little bit full right now on Earth, then all right, you can support whatever you want. I'm not really for or against. I just think that farmers should be held on a stable market, being able to provide for people that need it, and that's really much it. And we have hit 9 minutes on the podcast, more than I thought that we would expect, and it's really been a joy being here with you guys today, and I hope to see you guys on the next episode of the Not On Records Ag and Sports Podcast.